Today, we're diving into a controversial topic: why these 5 countries are the most hated. Now, before you grab your pitchforks, let's be clear: hate is a strong word. We're not saying these countries are inherently bad, or that their people are somehow worse than anyone else's. What we are going to do is unpack the complex historical, political, and social factors that have led to these nations having, shall we say, a bit of an image problem on the global stage. So, buckle up, because we've got a lot to cover. Let's get started. First, North Korea, the land of secretive dictators, synchronized goose-stepping soldiers, and enough nuclear ambition to make even the most jaded Cold War historians sweat a little. It's a place where the lines between reality and propaganda blur, creating a surreal landscape that both fascinates and terrifies. For decades, North Korea has been a constant source of international concern and, let's be honest, morbid fascination. The world watches with bated breath, wondering what the next move will be from this enigmatic nation. But what exactly is it about this small, isolated nation that makes it the target of so much global side-eye? Is it the unpredictability, the secrecy, or the sheer audacity of its actions on the world stage? Well, for starters, there's the whole human rights record thing. A record so abysmal that it has drawn condemnation from nearly every corner of the globe. And by thing, I mean a laundry list of documented abuses that would make even the most cynical among us wince. We're talking about forced labor camps, systematic torture, and a level of government surveillance that makes Orwell's 1984 look like a breezy beach read. We're talking about forced labor camps, systematic torture, and a level of government surveillance that makes Orwell's 1984 look like a breezy beach read. The regime's iron grip on its people is both terrifying and tragic. Then there's the whole nuclear weapons program. A program that has been the subject of countless international negotiations, sanctions, and sleepless nights for global leaders. You know, the one that the Kim dynasty insists is purely for self-defense, despite the fact that they keep threatening to turn Seoul into a sea of fire. It's a classic case of saying one thing and doing another, keeping the world on edge. It's like that friend who brings a samurai sword to a water balloon fight and then acts surprised when everyone gets a little nervous. The unpredictability of their actions only adds to the global anxiety. And let's not forget the isolationist policies that make North Korea about as accessible as a billionaire's private island. These policies not only isolate the nation but also shroud it in an aura of mystery and fear. All of this adds up to a country that's shrouded in mystery, perceived as unpredictable, and frankly, more than a little terrifying to the outside world. The combination of secrecy, power, and unpredictability makes North Korea a unique and daunting presence on the global stage.
Indeed, North Korea's human rights abuses are well documented. The stories that emerge from defectors and international observers paint a grim and harrowing picture. Forced labor camps, systematic torture, and pervasive government surveillance paint a grim picture. The regime's control over its people is both absolute and terrifying. The nuclear weapons program, which the regime claims is for self-defense, only heightens global anxiety. The potential for catastrophic conflict looms large, casting a shadow over international relations. Their isolationist policies further contribute to the nation's enigmatic and fearsome reputation. The lack of transparency and openness only adds to the global unease, making North Korea a perpetual enigma.
Iran, a country with a rich history and culture, often finds itself at odds with the West, and look, it's not hard to see why. When you've got a government that's openly hostile to the United States, a human rights record that's consistently condemned by international organizations, and a nuclear program that has everyone from Washington to Tel Aviv on edge, well, let's just say you're not exactly winning any popularity contests. But to reduce Iran to just these issues would be a disservice to its complexity. The Iranian people have a long and proud history, and their culture is a vibrant tapestry of art, music, and literature. However, the government's strict interpretation of Islamic law and its crackdown on dissent have cast a long shadow over the country. The suppression of free speech, the persecution of religious minorities, and the lack of basic freedoms are all serious concerns that contribute to Iran's negative image. Then there's the issue of Iran's support for militant groups in the region. Whether it's Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza, Iran's involvement in these conflicts only serves to further inflame tensions and solidify its reputation as a troublemaker on the world stage.
It's important to remember that Iran's rich cultural heritage and the resilience of its people stand in stark contrast to the government's actions. The suppression of free speech, persecution of religious minorities, and lack of basic freedoms are serious concerns. Moreover, Iran's support for militant groups like Hezbollah and Hamas exacerbates regional tensions and contributes to its negative global image.
Russia, land of Tolstoy, Tchaikovsky, and, well, tanks rolling into neighboring countries. It's fair to say that Russia has a bit of an image problem these days. Russian analysts, and by bit of a problem, I mean they're about as popular as a pack of stray dogs at a picnic. But what is it about this vast nation that rubs so many people the wrong way? Well, let's start with the whole annexing Crimea thing. Russian analysts, that whole invading a sovereign nation and claiming it as your own thing that tends to ruffle some feathers on the international stage. It's like borrowing your neighbor's lawnmower and then claiming it's always been yours because you liked the way it looked in your garage. Russian analyst. Then there's the whole meddling in foreign elections thing. Now, Russia isn't the only country that tries to influence elections abroad, but they've certainly elevated it to an art form. Russian analyst, it's like that friend who shows up to your poker night, tries to stack the deck, and then acts surprised when everyone accuses them of cheating. And let's not forget Russia's cozy relationship with authoritarian regimes around the world. From Syria to Venezuela, Russia seems to have a knack for befriending leaders who are about as popular as a head cold in a crowded elevator. Russian analyst, all of this adds up to a country that's seen as aggressive, untrustworthy, and more than a little willing to throw its weight around on the global stage. China, the world's most populous country and a rising economic superpower, has become a lightning rod for criticism in recent years. And frankly, it's not hard to see why. The nation has been at the center of numerous controversies that have sparked global debates and concerns. Chinese dissident? From its human rights record to its aggressive stance on territorial disputes, China has a knack for making headlines for all the wrong reasons. The international community watches closely, often with a mix of apprehension and disapproval. Let's start with the elephant in the room, or rather, the Uyghur in the internment camp. China's treatment of its Uyghur Muslim minority in Xinjiang province has been widely condemned as nothing short of cultural genocide. Reports of mass surveillance, indoctrination, and severe restrictions on religious practices paint a grim picture. Chinese dissident? We're talking about mass detention, forced labor, and systematic attempts to erase Uyghur culture and identity. The scale and severity of these actions have drawn comparisons to some of the darkest chapters in human history. Then there's the whole Hong Kong situation. Remember that whole one country, two systems promise that China made when it took back control of Hong Kong from the British? It was supposed to guarantee a high degree of autonomy and preserve the region's unique freedoms. Chinese dissident? Well, it turns out that promise was about as durable as a cheap umbrella in a hurricane. China's crackdown on pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong, its imposition of a draconian national security law, and its relentless assault on Hong Kong's freedoms have shown the world that when it comes to promises, China's word is about as good as a $3 bill. The erosion of freedoms has been swift and severe, leaving many Hong Kongers disillusioned and fearful for their future. And let's not forget China's increasingly assertive behavior in the South China Sea. From building artificial islands to harassing the ships of other countries, China seems determined to turn this strategically important waterway into its own personal lake. This aggressive expansion has led to heightened tensions with neighboring countries and concerns over the potential for conflict. Chinese dissident. All of this adds up to a country that's increasingly seen as a threat to the existing world order, a bully on the global playground, and a nation that's willing to prioritize its own interests, even if it means trampling on the rights and freedoms of others. The international community is left grappling with how to respond to a China that is both an indispensable economic partner and a formidable geopolitical rival. Ah, America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, and, let's be honest, a country that's no stranger to international criticism. American critic, now before you grab your star-spangled banners and start chanting USA, USA, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room, or rather, the bald eagle perched awkwardly on the bookshelf. America has a bit of a reputation problem. It's like that friend who shows up to a party, cranks up their music too loud, spills beer on the rug, and then wonders why everyone's giving them the side-eye. American critic, so, where do we even begin? Well, there's the whole military intervention thing. From Vietnam to Iraq to Afghanistan, America has a bit of a habit of wading into foreign conflicts, often with mixed results, to put it mildly. It's like that friend who's always trying to play the hero, even when no one asks them to, and usually ends up making things worse. American critic. Then there's the whole domestic issues thing. From racial inequality and gun violence to political polarization, and a healthcare system that seems designed by a committee of insurance executives and Bond villains. America certainly has its fair share of internal struggles. It's like that friend who's always got their life together on Instagram but is secretly falling apart behind closed doors. American critic. And let's not forget America's, shall we say, nuanced relationship with international diplomacy. From withdrawing from international agreements to slapping tariffs on allies, America sometimes seems determined to alienate its friends and embolden its enemies. It's like that friend who's always quick to pick a fight, even when it's clear they're in the wrong. Yet, despite all these criticisms, there's something undeniably captivating about America. It's a country of innovation, resilience, and a spirit that refuses to be easily broken. American critic. So while it's easy to point out the flaws, let's not forget the strengths that make America a unique and influential player on the global stage. After all, even the most criticized friend can surprise you with their moments of brilliance and heart. And maybe, just maybe, that's what keeps us all watching, waiting to see what America will do next. Which country do you think is the most controversial and why? Do you agree with this list? Share your thoughts and join the discussion. Share your thoughts and join the discussion. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.